So guys, here's the online workshop, and here's a little slide deck I had fun putting together today. And really, it's all about designing that personal practice plan. And of course, as you can already hear from your introductions to each other, you're all going to have very different practice plans because you're all totally different, which is what I love, the diversity of it. Okay, so this is the agenda. This is obviously the intro. We're going to talk a little bit about challenges and opportunities. We're going to talk obviously about digital and analog tools. It's great that we have multi-generations on this Zoom call. We're going to have a lot of richness in that chat. Bit of reflection. I really want you to use some deep dive reflection moments actually in this. There's some definite writing activities for you, some group discussion, and obviously reflection moments and Q&As. So that's the basic agenda. Let's see if we can squeeze all that into basically 50 minutes. You generally know about me. I know all of you are kind of on the socials, and really in a nutshell, I make things happen. It started with a love of an instrument, but it's actually more now about connecting people to wonderful music and each other. So with this kind of workshop, these I think are the clear benefits. You probably already might know how to tailor a practice plan to your goals. If not, we're going to deepen that even more. I think the most important thing is clarity. I find that when I'm coaching people, often there just isn't that clarity on actually how do I get to that end goal, whatever that might be. I think often we struggle with overcoming mental blocks. I am a recovering perfectionist, and I definitely suffer from procrastination myself, and I've also experienced burnout. So if anyone else resonates with that, there's definitely some strategies in here we can talk about. I think it's very important that we develop methods to keep ourselves motivated, and I love rewards. If you don't have a rewards-based system for yourself, let's talk about that. And obviously the point today is that you can actually share your own stories and insights with your peers here. Let's get into some game changers with planning. I think what's really exciting about talking about why planning is so effective is actually looking at the most common challenges. I find this is generally, in 30 years of education practice, what I hear. Could you maybe just look at that list of left top 5 challenges preventing effective practice and just see if anything resonates with you? Is it potentially a lack of structure, as in not knowing what to practice or how? Is it actually a lack of structure around your diary? Is it more time management issues? Do you actually get stuck in a loop when you're practicing? Is it mindless repetition, overwhelm? So this is open to you now. You're very welcome to basically unmute if you think there's something in that list of top 5 challenges that resonate with you.
Can I just jump in first? Is that okay?
Just say that again for me.
I'm just going to jump in first. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Jump. That's what I'm saying. Just if there's anything there, it might not necessarily resonate with you, but if there is something there.
I think lack of structure, but also educating my family and the family routine. Like it's setting time in the family routine of after school and dinner and all that stuff. It's making sure there's time available for my practice in all of that, and that practice is sacred and not to be interrupted unless the house is burning or someone's bleeding.
Yeah, completely. Strong boundaries around that. Absolutely. And being a mother myself, I totally relate. We can get into that a little bit further. Is there anyone else who thinks there may be something there from that top 5 challenge?
Yeah, this panel here, yeah. I've certainly experienced all of those, and I think at the moment there's, not sure if it's overwhelm and burnout. Probably lack of motivation.
Okay, great.
At the moment, sort of it comes and it goes. Yeah.
And that's sometimes to do also with being a professional educator too, to be honest.
Oh, God, I've realised I need to do a lot more mental mindset management.
Yes, absolutely.
I relate to what you said about burnout, perfectionism, need rewards. And I haven't done that. And I read somewhere, I was reading your story about going to the Lincoln Centre, and that was so inspiring. And I think it was in that you said about rewards and how you love to go shopping and then go to a cafe and eat cake. And I thought, she's my gal. I'm with you on that one. But the perfectionist thing and the expectations that I put on myself, because of this, I should be that.
And that can often lead to a very early kind of mental training and kind of expectations. So this is the first very strong activity for you guys to do. You're going to do a SWOT analysis. Most people in business have done this. And I actually want you to think about your practice currently now. You're going to spend 5 minutes. I'm going to put the timer on. And I want you to work through your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities that you have coming up, but also what potentially could totally curveball that, your threats. So can you read that screen well enough for me to not have to read that for you?
Yeah.
Right. So let's put you guys on mute. I'm going to put a timer on for 5 minutes and go. Do your SWOT analysis. Timer for 5 minutes.
5 minutes starting now.
Thanks, Siri.
My pleasure.
So yeah, I think strengths are very important. Some of you might want to start there. I often find most people in coaching probably start with threats. They're clearer, kind of what the curveballs are. For example, Monique, you mentioned one. Family, boundaries, I'm practicing. That's definitely a threat. Getting that support system in place. I'll stop talking and leave you to think. And heads up, you'll be doing a bit of a chat on each one of these, okay? Don't panic if you don't get every question answered. Just throw some ideas down. Okay, so heads up, you've got 3 minutes left. Two minutes. You haven't thought about opportunities yet. That's a great one to start putting your brain on. What do you have coming up? And think about what new tools could help you grow in this space. What could they be? One more minute. I love the virtual sound of other people's brains working. It's brilliant. And at the last 20 seconds or so, start finishing your last thought. Okay. And there we go. Time is up. How do we go with that 5-minute exercise? I'd be interested to hear from Karen first. Do you want to jump in?
Sure.
Unmute and speak.
Okay. So I started with strengths, and I said that I benefit from having pretty flexible employment arrangements as a casual teacher and a casual outdoor educator. I can kind of do my thing and not bring any reports home, and I can practice at school if I get days at school. I have some experience with Alexander technique, which I feel like is something that I use a lot in my practice.
So that's a very unique thread, isn't it, for you, part of your practice? And just in case Monique doesn't know, just clarify what that is.
It's to do with learning more about how your body is kind of structured to move, as well as how your thoughts can influence the way that you use your body as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Fantastic thread to have, really useful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is a very unique kind of thinking process that you can bring in as well.
I use an app to track the amount of time that I'm practicing, so that I've got a little number that makes me happy at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Or reminds me to do a little bit more the next time. And I also have used a practice calculator before in the lead up to like maybe prepping a big program from Practice Mind. So basically you go, I've got 2 hours or I've got 1 hour and I've got 5 things and I'd like to spend 30% on this, 10% on that. And it just gives you the number of minutes.
Absolutely.
That's what you need. And it's simple maths, but it just means you don't have to do the maths. So I like that.
Absolutely. That's brilliant. And already there's some fantastic rich examples of how you utilize tools as well, and also use the metric of percentage metric of progress, but also timing, measuring time, and tracking that, but breaking down, chunking down goals, which is fantastic. What did you have for weaknesses? I'd be interested.
I said increasing perfectionism leading up to a performance. I feel like I'm pretty grounded until like it starts to loom, and then I get a little bit worse and worse at keeping that in check. I said I felt that just generally technique development outside of whatever piece I'm looking at that moment is pretty weak. Like I don't have a consistent scale or studies or bow technique thing that I do each day in the same way that I do like mobility and agility stuff for left hand. I just don't have that in other ways, I suppose. So I feel like that's a bit lacking. And what do you avoid and get stuck on is making musical decisions, making phrasing decisions, and
so interpretive artistry.
Yes.
Right.
I think I avoid working on it, but I don't necessarily think that I'm not doing it when I play at home, but that does run me into some problems when I perform it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yes, because your brain needs to know the choice you've made. So part of planning is actually planning those interpretive choices and really trusting that instinct as well. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And I know you haven't shared yet opportunities and threats, but I'm hoping you got something down, yes, for those two? And so thank you, Karen. let's move on to Pam. Pamela, have you got anything to share for opportunities and threats?
Yeah, well, I've got both. This week I discovered an app called Tom Play.
Oh, really? It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and I had been using Metronaut when I was teaching. Didn't know about Tom Play, but I can see that Tom Play is much better. It seems to have all the I'm talking about the flute repertoire.
Yeah,
So,
but it also
yeah.
Everything from beginner to professional. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to get into that. That's an opportunity. The threat is that use it, what is it? Use it or lose it.
As in, because you're what? An older person.
Sorry. So it's a case of while I'm teaching, or when I'm teaching music, well, I'm using my information's sort of being used, and I'm exercising the information, as it were. And so I was doing some piano while I was waiting for it to be time for this, and I was playing a Chopin nocturne, and I looked at this rallentando was in there, and I know that's a common, pretty basic term, and I looked at it and I just was a little bit unsure that, that's slowing down, isn't it? It's that stuff I find really alarming.
Okay.
That's a threat. Yeah, so generally mindset stuff. I need to do a lot more mindset stuff. I know what to do, like CBT is one example that I can do. I just got to use it. I think it's probably under weak as well, the weakness as well, is that because I'm practicing, my time is very flexible. And because I'm not keeping to a specific routine, and I don't have playing goals and playing things that I'm working towards, then the motivation isn't there.
Absolutely. There's no outcome or external.
Yeah, there's no accountability, and there's no excitement, all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit like swimming in the baby pool. You just kind of having a bit of fun, splashing around, but for there's no reason there. You know what I mean?
I'm not growing, and growing matters a great deal to me.
Absolutely. Thank you for
sharing. I'm growing in other areas, but I feel like this is stagnating. And when I read your thing about going to Lincoln Centre, it really sparked something in me.
Great. Keep reaching for those big goals. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. We might just have a quick listen to Monique. Monique, would you like to share maybe one from each of those categories?
Sure. So strengths, I put I've got a supportive family, and that I'm very enthusiastic.
Can you speak a little bit closer to the microphone if possible, Monique, please?
Sure. Strengths, I had that I was enthusiastic and I had a supportive family.
Great.
Weaknesses, I do need a little bit of variety to keep me stimulated to practice and challenge myself. Opportunities, I put change of mindset, but also to take up the opportunity to have a practice buddy. And I've been talking to Peter from last year already about that.
Right.
And threats, the biggest threat for me, and what kind of made me fall off the bandwagon last year was Dad's diagnosis with lung cancer, and that it was really emotional, and I had a big lack of focus with that. So the threat for me is keeping my focus and keeping my practice when there's emotional upheaval.
Yeah, because in actual fact, it does help us balance. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing, and particularly for sharing a personal story there, Monique. And I knew that was happening for you, so thank you. So we're going to move to our next part of the session, which is really where you're getting really detailed thinking. So you're going to go through this 5-step process of how we're going to build this personal plan. Many of you might have experience already what that looks down, but we're just going to get you to fix potentially one goal right now. I actually want you to think of one thing. So Karen's already specifically said Karen recital. Let's keep your focus on that. And Pam, it might be the Chopin nocturne you were playing. I'm going to play that for a group of friends. That's an example of a goal, because actually that will give you a date that you have to invite people over to listen to you. So you got
the embarrassment potential is good motivator.
but that you got to share the skills, right? And actually finding the right support crew is going to be important for all of us going forward. So just pick one goal and just spend some quiet moments seeing if you can think through these 5 stages as I talk you through them. Pick one goal though at the start. I think what's hard about big, hairy, audacious goals is then working out how you're going to get from an end outcome from where you're at and how you're going to boomerang between the two. Generally speaking, we normally break that down more in terms of calendar weeks and months, just like we would do in business. I generally think in monthly goals for myself. And I think that's a really important part of how I then break things down. I then also break them down into weekly tasks as well. I find that most people think they're really structured in a session, but generally it's not until I've actually got my students, when I'm coaching them on practice, particularly to actually record a 20-minute block, and then I look through that 20-minute block. That's when I realize there's actually a lot of kind of responding rather than actually being very proactive. And that can sometimes be the way that we've been taught. So what I mean by that is we play things through and then we kind of just organically just start to work things through. And I think we need both structures. We need very proactive, highly disciplined thinking in our sessions, but we also need very free sessions. I tend to find most people don't have a mixture of both. So in terms of how I structure my practice, it's 20-minute power blocks. And then often if I've done a really power block on maybe a specific technique, I might then totally do the next 20 minutes based on an improvisation or a feel or more instinctive artistic work, more tone production, for example, but generally maybe step away from the music. Just think how you can challenge yourself in that way. Tracking progress is obviously essential. I find that most adults don't have a way to track what that is. And often it's because they're not sure actually of what progress looks like, sounds like, or feels like. And those are actually the 3 feedback loops we need to think about. So most traditional teaching talks about tracking it in terms of planning time. But I think there are other metrics that we can use to track your progress. For importantly, how are you emotionally feeling about your progress? If you're feeling good and buoyant and joyful and enriched, that's fantastic progress, regardless of what it sounds like. So there's actually a multiplicity there of how you can track. Okay, we've also got the very important part of reflecting and refining your plan. I find that particularly most adults will not sit with a habit long enough to embed it, to then get to that next stage of reflecting and refining. Most adults, if they get a little bit kind of bored, will generally shift things very quickly and then point the focus in a different direction rather than just sitting with the work and really just trusting that practice. So maybe, Karen, could you share a little bit, maybe talk us through step 1 to 5 with your big, hairy, audacious goal of a Karen recital. Let's use as a case study. What do you want to achieve?
Okay, I'd like to achieve a full length.
What does that mean in terms of time?
So I in my head it's like somewhere in the 40-minute mark, possibly a bit more, a bit less.
Great. Let's just say it's 45 minutes. That
Okay.
solves the problem.
Great.
But I think, is it 45 minutes of music material, or actually is it 45 minutes including personal introductions, talking, tuning? So that's my next question for you.
I think it would be 45 of music, so it would be longer in.
Great. So generally that would be like a 60-minute planning space. Yeah. Okay. And then break it down. Identify where you're going to need to focus between now and what's your date?
December-ish.
Great. So we need to get to that next detail, which is fix yourself a date.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that could be complicated because it might be to do with the venue you're going to be booking. But sometimes just fixing a date where you want to go just solves that next stage. And then you can really target venues specifically around that weekend or that defined space of time. Yeah?
Yeah.
So get clearer on that when you're going to do it. And of course, again, focusing in a little bit more on identifying the repertoire, why you're doing it, your programming rationale, as we discussed in your coaching session earlier. That's going to be very important. So maybe share with the group why you're doing it and how you're going to focus in breaking that down.
It's basically a little bit of a full circle moment for me because I wasn't able to do quite as much cello education, tertiary cello education as I had expected because of RSI and just like performance anxiety really tanking my marks. It wasn't something that I was able to do, and it's something that's on my mind. And I think I'm also kind of hoping it will like boost my confidence in my playing so that I can maybe explore casual orchestral auditions, other things like that I previously thought were not accessible to me because I hadn't done this rite of passage, I suppose. So that's kind of the
absolutely. It's to be applauded, and it's a very exciting milestone for you. But you're going to need support to get there. All right, so let's go down to number 3, structuring your sessions. This is your creative practice sessions. This is not project managing or producing an event. This is more about how you're working with your instrument. Do you feel you've got all of the technical requirements for the repertoire you're going to play? And just maybe share with the group what you're thinking about aiming to.
Probably the most technically ambitious thing that I'm looking at is the full hide and see.
Yeah.
The aspect of it that I'm most concerned about is the quite quick scalic passages in the third movement that's like up in thumb position.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I don't know that I have that technical facility right now, and I certainly don't have that the confidence in it in front of people at the moment.
No, but with some dedicated 3-month work on really zoning in on thumb position, fast playing, coordination, you might feel totally different in 3 months' time. Yeah. And of course, that's what you discuss with your current mentor, your teacher. Make sure you have a lot of integrated exercises to build that. Okay, let's go to number 4, tracking your progress. Are you going to use the same planning method and tracking method that you're using at the moment? How are you going to know it's working? How are you going to know you're progressing?
I think it would probably be smart to either be regularly like framing up a practice performance for myself, maybe every 1 to 2 months.
Great idea.
Either with or without a recording device or an actual audience. Maybe both.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And absolutely, you need to practice the performing. You need to practice going for it, regardless of what happens. Yeah. So more of those kind of mock performances in your mind that you have, the better you're going to feel when you get there. Yeah. And there's lots of evidence of fantastic accomplished musicians doing that. And that generally, if I'm doing a concerto, I will do that a month before I'm ready, and I will play it in the dress I'm going to wear. And it's for real. It's like this, you get all the nerves out, and it's like, it's what I call get your bugs out. You know, everything's to be tested. That's when you can see your progress, because then you still have a few more weeks to reflect and refine your practice. So is there going to be any adjustments or adaptations you're going to have? I would definitely suggest before your December date to be thinking November. Try and get everything ready for November. I know that's quite hard to think around, but I do think that's part of the problem why often perfectionism creeps in. We kind of get very close to a deadline and then start to panic. Yeah. So let's move the deadline a month sooner than you need it. Yeah. All right, let's move on. Okay, thanks for sharing. So this is the kind of idea of generally my philosophy in teaching. Most students are very comfortable in the comfy zone, obviously, and they really hate going into that challenge. But if we can kind of blend the two, fantastic. That optimum learning zone is what we need. That takes a lot of trust. That has to be built over time. But also you probably can feel that duality when you're working on your own with your instrument. And you just need to track your own comfort and challenge levels over the next week. What makes you feel really comfy in practice time and why? And actually what's challenging you? And that's when you're going to start to really work out where your optimal learning can be. Normally for me, it's 20 minutes in. My second block, it's a bit like when you make pancakes. I don't know if anyone relates to this, but your first pancake is a total shocker. And then the second one, you're on a roll. And I think that's a little bit like me with practice time. First practice session always is clunky. Second time is great. All right, so practice flow diagram. This is generally how I work in terms of with a student in one-to-one or even in a group. There's always a discovery phase. I find that most people go straight into repetition, but if you're not being curious and asking questions in that first kind of session, like, oh, why is that happening? Oh, why am I making that weird sound? Oh, that's interesting. My shifting's feeling clunky. Or why can't I hold the bow correctly today? All those questions are important. It's feedback, 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 but be in that discovery rather than judgment space. The repetition is obviously important, but obviously repetition with curiosity and refinement. Kind of think, gosh, how could I try this differently? If I'm going to repeat this again, why am I repeating it? So just again, bringing the brain into the space. And I find that a lot of people worry about just sitting there thinking. I think actually there should be some silent moments in practice blocks where you're just evaluating, how am I feeling? Oh, am I interested in this? Oh, I've wandered off. I'm thinking about my shopping list. If so, put the instrument down and then start the cycle again. There's something I like to talk about very quickly, which is in every practice session, you're generally going to have 3 levels of learning. You're going to have developing or new material, as well as mastering material. And I think most people tend to just sit in the kind of mastered material in comfort zone way too long. So you should have 3 levels of that kind of stage of learning flowing in your practice. This is totally purposeful and very healthy. All right, this is my diagram for excellence. We start with ease, which connects to Karen's experience with Alexander technique. If you are not easy in your body, easy in your brain, easy and graceful with yourself, you're not going to feel easy with the instrument, understandably. But without the ease, you're not going to become expressive. Without expressiveness, you're not going to become accurate. And of course, the rhythmic vitality completely connects to the accuracy, particularly because of the bow striking the string, left hand total coordination with the bow. Resonant tone often happens because we're rhythmically precise, because the bow's punching into that tone production area that we need. And obviously that feeds into that wonderful positive attitude. And by the end of that diagram, everyone should feel like, oh yes, it's so easy. Most people get stuck somewhere along the chart. And I would like to just see now, just speak around the Zoom room, pick a number. Where do you generally get stuck? Is it ease, expressiveness, accuracy, rhythmic accuracy or vitality? Or is it resonant tone? You kind of get stuck on sound, maybe get a bit obsessive of that. Or is it more your attitude? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pam, where do you get stuck? Just maybe thinking. Monique?
Number 3 for me.
3 for you. Accuracy. All right. That helps me understand. Okay, great. Karen, where do you get stuck?
2 in front of people, which now explains a lot of things to me.
But actually, if you weren't in front of people, would you get stuck on that?
I don't think so. I think I'm really surprised that expressiveness is as early as it is. And that explains a lot of things for me. So I think it's out of order.
So, okay, so you need to be really working on ease. And a little strategy for you is, how much practice do you do? Not necessarily visualizing other people, but imagining an audience. How much of that kind of vision work do you do?
I don't like people in my practice room.
Okay, what about if you practiced the other way around?
How do you mean?
As in, put someone there just doing something. It could be like a filing or just a dusting or something, but you're just practicing away. Do you get distracted if someone's just in the space?
Not really. I do have one very frequently.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
And what about when you feel that someone's watching you? Is that when it starts to happen?
I think it's I notice a really big difference when I'm practicing and I know he's coming home versus when I'm practicing and I wasn't expecting him to come home. Or if someone walks past the door that I wasn't expecting to see. But the most marked difference is when I say, "Can I perform this for you, please?" And then it's like a totally different experience. And
so what about replacing the word perform with show? Can I show this to you? Or can I share this with you?
Sometimes I say, "Can I run this for you?" And that doesn't feel as scary.
Yeah. Can I sketch this for you? Change the word. It might just help a little bit. Okay, we're going to go into our next activity. This is obviously a very cute color-coded. I'm a bit of a color-coded planner. I reckon Monique might be too. But I just want you to draw this on a fresh piece of paper if you can. And I'll explain my logic in a moment. So we have a beautiful big square. It could be a circle. It could be your shape. But generally speaking, we have 4 little columns or categories that come out of that. And of course, you can be as creative with your shapes as possible. The next stage, of course, is trying to label what they would be. So obviously, you've got your central idea today of my practice or me, what am I working on? And these generally, regardless of the age, are going to be across all instruments, including voice, the things that we would need to teach or work on and develop: fundamentals, exercises, studies, and repertoire. So what I do next with my students, regardless of the age, is start to talk about how we can break those down. I generally find most people have way too many things in each category to kind of factor in. Notice there's only really basically 4 per each category, and that could be a simple task list. The other thing I do in the little arrows is with the little clock, is I put a metric amount of time. I sometimes find people get very stuck in a zone. So for example, they could be stuck in exercises for 30 minutes and their brain's fried and their body's tired and they haven't got to their repertoire. The other thing I often do is flip those around. I would encourage everyone to be mixing up. It's not always healthy to generally start with exercises. It might actually just go straight, when your brain is fresh, into repertoire and break things down. So in the little kind of triangles, you can put metrics in terms of length of time that you would need to do. And of course, the more advanced student will require a significant chunk of more time. The most essential things, I think, which are fun on this little sheet, is you've got to fuel your practice with ideas. I find that most people just think practice is practice, but actually you've got to be inspired sometimes to do that. And if you're finding you're lacking in mojo and lacking in motivation, work out how you're going to get inspired. For me, it's often going to a concert or potentially going to a rehearsal of other people, talking to a creative person, maybe going onto YouTube, looking at the repertoire I'm also about to play. I might even do an investigation or project before I start learning something new. But Pam, you noticed I love rewards. I need rewards. That's how I've managed to kind of carrot on the end of the stick, kind of pull myself through a huge amount of overwhelming work. And I totally celebrate every single milestone. And I find that most grown-ups do not reward themselves, yet it's a natural practice. If we are, for example, working with young primary school age students, we kind of need to support and reinforce positive engagement. Now, you can see at the top, there's that cute little symbol of emotional calibration. So part of the feedback for me is also, how am I feeling about my practice? It's not actually a metric to do with time. So those are kind of the simplest way for me to kind of show that in a flow chart. All right, let's get to some nitty gritty. You're now going to audit your tools in your planning kit. This is practice planning, tools for musician. Thinking a little bit about what you generally use. For organization, are you someone who's very systems-based, very routine-based? Do you need process, procedure? Do you need to actually sit for a month doing the same thing over and over and over and over again? Because that will help you create order over chaos. Fantastic. Are you actually someone who maybe is more a documentation person, loves archiving, researching, investigating, could spend hours on YouTube looking for at least 15 versions of the Haydn C Major Concerto as an example, but actually not get around to actually practicing even the first exposition? Are you also someone who loves recording or video practicing? Are you someone who loves practice trackers? Fantastic. What about the result part of the cycle? Where are you at with reviewing, refining, seeking support, and building a network of accountability? So those are the three essential kind of tool kits you're going to need if you're going to really get successful and, very importantly, happy with your creative practice. So maybe let's hear from Monique. Where are you sitting in that kind of slide?
It's probably no surprise to you, but definitely the documentation. I'm definitely organised, but one thing that I've said that I will commit to this year is participating in the recording and submitting online to the Facebook community group.
I cannot wait to see you do that. That will be a massive milestone, and congratulations if you have the courage to do that.
Yes. So that's what my goal is for this year, is to, and part of the goal is to actually, and that will help with the feedback and getting that accountability network, and all that other things will come into that as well. But to participate in the online community and to submit my my homework and my tracking.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep the homework challenges very simple so they're not overwhelming. Just pick one. You don't have to do all three. See what I mean? Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So these are essential digital tools. I find that if I don't see my diary, if I don't block out my diary and color code my diary, I'm totally stuffed. And I hate starting my week like that. So part of my practice is on Sunday, because my general week is Monday to Friday, work week. And of course, weekends can be spent on gigs, recording projects, or doing other things like performances, for example, or teaching students. My chunk of practice time has to happen generally between Monday to Friday, which means I've got to be very smart at how I do that. So get clear on the digital tools. A little action for you guys is if you can kind of screenshot potentially a digital diary of a made up week. It doesn't have to be a real week, but you can forecast in a month's time, this is what my practice is going to be like. And I'd actually like you to screenshot that and send it to me at the end of when you've actually done that activity. Quick question, can you pick up 3 words to sum up your current practice? For example, mine is at the moment, not enough wish. That would be my 3. What about you, Karen?
Needs more fast.
Like it. Pam, 3 words to sum up your current practice. Let's be honest here. She might have gone. Monique, what about you?
I needs more focus.
Needs more focus. That's great. Write that
here,
down.
I was muted. Needs more fun.
No, oh, there you go. So we've got focus and fun. Okay, I'm just going to introduce some of you to the Andante tool. The Andante app, generally, obviously, as most apps are free. I'm not sure if it's on Android, but I think the Andante practice app is brilliant. Now, obviously, for me, in my teaching practice, I would have to kind of zoom in and out of these 3 general target audiences for me. And each one of these targets have completely different ways of using digital planners. So it's totally obvious that a young starter, no chance they're going to be given a phone necessarily, but a parent can. And that often is a way to really engage the parent. Just moving on to our analog tools. Some of you might be more au fait with old school planning. If you are, fantastic. But I do find that having a vision board, and I'm going to use Karen's particular goal as an example, have you got clear on the kind of how it's going to look in your mind, the actual recital, everything, get to the detail of what does the stage look like, what's it going to smell like, what you're going to wear, are there lights, cameras, action, who's sitting on the front row? Do you have a vision board?
No.
Get one happening, because it's going to really help you. And that's obviously what I do, particularly with my festival programming. I need to see it in my head first. Okay, and of course, analog tools for these targets, the same targets, are going to be completely different. I find that most adult learners love journaling, love writing, and might actually write more than they play their cello. If we could flip that around, that would be amazing. Most kids hate writing and just want to play. So we need to kind of find that happy medium. All right, so how do you use planners as part of your creative practice? Let's have a quick share. Monique, what kind of planning tools do you use for practicing specifically, not for work?
Yep, I don't use any, which is part of the problem.
Aha, and yet you are an amazing admin witch. You need to get your admin witch brain onto this, okay? So do that challenge. Show me a week example of practice, and then you would actually have to extend that to a month, all right? What about you, Karen? What planners do you use for practicing?
Yeah, so I was using that Practice Mind thing. I haven't recently.
There are some amazing free practice tools online. You can just type in practice planners PDF, and you're going to be hit up with so many potential things you can download. And Pamela, do you use planners for practicing?
Yeah, I'm still paper diary kind of gal.
Right.
Yeah, I have a week to an opening paper diary. Then I also have a daily diary where I write specifically what I'm going to do, and that's on my office desk. And then beside my piano, I have a notebook where I have it, I track. I do it on paper. Very much like what you've talked about.
Brilliant. And already my brain's blurring with how many potential things you read, but that's very exciting that you do that. All right, so this is my story, and I'm going to tell you it in 10 seconds. All right, I went to Daisy's studio. I'd never played the cello before. She gave it to me, and she said, go discover it. And I had to unpack it all on my own, and then I had to find 2 amazing weird sounds, and then that love affair has continued ever since. Now, tell me a story about why you play. And I'm going to start with Karen. Can you tell me a story really quickly about what was the first initial reason you loved the cello?
Someone came to my classroom when I was in year 4, and I felt the C string through the floor.
Cool. I love that story. Thank you. And in that story is going to be kind of what you need to extract to really get deep into your why and what you want to share actually with your audience. And isn't that perfect that you're picking a C major concerto? Wow. Actually, that's gorgeous. Monique, can you tell us your story in under 30 seconds?
Okay, yes. So I saw this amazing cellist in Bundaberg doing a Bach Odyssey concert named Louise, and she reminded me how much I loved the cello, and I could feel the cello through the floorboards of the art gallery that we were in, and it just completely, wow. Yep, that was all. Yep, that's it. That's all you get, 30 seconds.
That's it. But that was wonderful because I can hear excitement in your voice. And again, notice the vibration. It's all about vibration, the feeling, the energy exchange. And Pamela, of course, you don't play the cello, but tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, I've experienced it very badly. It was as a little girl reaching up to the piano and playing the sounds, and I was just transfixed. It was how it made me feel. And to this day, it's still how it makes me feel. And the deep places inside me that it reaches. But piano is different to flute. Flute's fun.
Yeah.
Piano is more that deep inner world.
Yeah. But actually, in all of those three stories, there's a sense of wonder, awe,
Yeah.
and not being told what to do, but actually discovery, self-discovery. And I think that's important to empower, particularly adults, to just go back into that space. And I'd encourage you to, if you do journal, write that story down. It's going to become your signature story. You have to really plug into that, because I've never forgotten that feeling of discovering the instrument for the first time. And it totally fuels me and drives me even now, no matter how hard it gets. Now we're going to talk a little bit about execution. What can you do right now in the next 24 hours to improve the quality and consistency of your practice? Karen.
I can get the practice planner out again.
Brilliant. Monique.
Definitely practice planner and getting some times into the diary.
Fantastic. Pam. She's maybe on mute again. That's okay. Moving on. Okay.
Sorry, I missed the question. I was busily writing down what you said about the signature story, and I missed the question.
It's all good. We're going to move on anyway, because we're already
Okay.
at 30. We can obviously re-dip into these slides.
Oh, okay, it's time. Yep, sure.
So this is the approach. I believe that you have to create a bespoke plan for yourself. Yes, you can ask support from mentors, people around you, musicians you may know, but also people who are really smart with planning. And of course, it's got to contain your goals and aspirations, because otherwise it's not personal, obviously, but it also has to take in your own learning style. We actually all have different ways of learning. If you haven't dug deep into how you personally learn, do a couple of things and just see what that is. There's some wonderful online tests you can do. But I think the most important thing is be creative. This is a creative art, and yet I find most people get stuck in uncreative ways of solving problems. Going to challenge you. What can you do to challenge yourself? Students retain 95? It's 95% of a message when they watch it live or in a video, which is why live lessons are very important for people, actually, particularly in the early stages, compared to just 10% when they read it. Gosh, that's fascinating. So my challenge to this group is, could you do a video practice diary? Could you join a 100 days practice challenge on Instagram? Could you maybe be a vlogger in the making and tell your story and build a community and do it your way? Or could you go live, raw interaction in real time? I challenge Karen to do that before your recital. Now, of course, the next thing is all about research and social media. These will come to you. I want to share your journey, and I'm going to be challenging you on socials to see if you can do that a little bit. Speeding up the process, because we're already 2 minutes over time. I apologize. We are going to be talking practice buddies. If you don't have someone who you have as a support crew for practice buddies, find one. Karen, do you have a practice buddy, someone who can check in with, keep you accountable?
I don't currently, but I have a couple that I had in mind that I hadn't approached yet.
Great. Do that. That's going to be your next task list. Pam, do you have a practice buddy?
Yes and no.
Okay. What about Monique? It sounds like you're going to be maybe hitting up Peter. Yeah?
Yep. And if any sort of one I meet in the beginners class wants to catch up, I'm happy to do that.
Amazing. So the catch up can be online, it can be on the phone. It doesn't have to be long. 5 minutes. Just check in with that person, because you'd be surprised how much they're dealing with in life. And this is the end. Contact me if you would like any further information. I'm now going to stop Zooming, and we are going to come out of this. Oh gosh, hello, stop. There we go. Bye-bye. And now we can see us hopefully in a moment. It's going to just think a little bit about that. Back to Zooming. And we are there. Well done. That was a really very long, extensive chat, but I'm hoping it's going to give you some tools going forward. So a question from all of you if you have one. If not, it's time for well-deserved dinner. So that's it. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh.
And that was fun. So I will send this as a slide deck so you can kind of dip further back in. when I just added that challenge, is there anything there you're like, yeah, I'm so not doing that? Was there a bit of resistance, or were you a bit curious about whether you could do it? Karen, would you be able to do a live for us? Maybe a practice diary? Maybe a little bit of interaction on socials. Sharing it on the Facebook private group is a nice, easy way to do that if you haven't done that already.
Okay, that feels like something in my comfort zone. I recently made myself get an Instagram because I felt like I was kind of withering away, not connecting in the music community, but also I'm like terrified of anyone hearing me. So yes, I hear your challenge and I want to respond to it, but I'm very scared.
So work out what that can look like for you.
Yeah.
Okay? Between now and when I speak to you next. Monique has already said she's pledging a video this month, homework challenge. It's open string bonanza. It's just like, you can also give it a title. You could even dress up if you want as a fairy. It could be like Monique coming home from work. Yeah. And sometimes just dressing up and doing a whole kind of set scene can just break the ice. Okay. Pamela, would you get onto the socials and maybe share some of your practice with us?
I have been known to do a flute improvisation.
Great.
And
it doesn't have to be long.
Yeah, it was only, I don't know, however many seconds.
Yes, they do say after 7 seconds, everyone switches and keeps on doom scrolling anyway. So, you know, just 5 to 7 seconds, that's it.